Ever stop and think about what really makes you you? Well, it turns out that exact question is something leaders at huge billion-dollar companies are completely obsessed with. So today, we're going to connect those dots. We'll show how the secrets of your own personality actually scale up to explain massive global business strategies. Right, so it all kicks off with this really simple question. Why do you do the things you do? Why is it that you and your best friend can be in the same situation and react in totally different ways? And look, this isn't just some late-night philosophical question, it's a deeply strategic one. Nailing this is the secret to everything from picking the right job to leading a team spread all over the world. Just look at these two. On one hand, you've got Maya in Toronto. She grows up in her family's bakery, so teamwork and responsibility are just baked into her DNA. That experience shapes her dream of starting her own business. Then you have Akio in Tokyo. His entire culture is built around group harmony, so that pushes him towards a career that's all about collaboration. See? Same drive, totally different paths, all because of the world that shaped them. And it really boils down to three huge forces that shape us. You've got culture, which gives us society's unwritten rulebook. Then there are our social circles, our friends, who influence our everyday choices. And, of course, family, which installs all those expectations and ways of communicating that, stick with us for life. Okay, so now let's scale this whole idea way up. If just one person is this complex mix of influences, what on earth happens when you're trying to run a company with 10,000 employees, each from their own unique background, scattered all across the planet? The complexity doesn't just grow, it absolutely explodes. This brings us to something we call the global leader's paradox. It's this huge strategic choice every leader faces. Do you push for one single, company way everywhere to be super efficient, the same way you do things in your Toronto headquarters? Or do you adapt your style for what works best in, say, Montreal or Frankfurt, but risk becoming this fragmented, inconsistent organization? It's a massive decision. And as the Harvard Business Review points out, the absolute best leaders, they don't just pick a side. They master this art of what's called code switching. They learn to adapt their style to fit the situation, and they turn this paradox into a massive strategic advantage. So, how do they actually pull it off? Well, the smartest leaders have a toolkit with two really powerful lenses. One for looking at the big picture of culture, and another for zooming in on individual personality. The first tool in the kit is Hofstede's Cultural Dimensions. Think of this like the cultural operating system that's just running in the background of an entire country. It's the macro, 30,000-foot view that helps you understand all those unwritten rules of a society. Hofstede breaks it down into 6 key dimensions. Take power distance, for example. All that measures is how much a culture accepts hierarchy. In a culture with high power distance, you'd probably call your boss Mr. Smith, but in a low one, you'd probably just call him Bob. This framework is like a map for navigating all these invisible cultural currents. But here's the thing. A country's culture doesn't define every single person in it. And that's where our second tool comes in, the big 5 personality traits. So if Hofstede is the operating system, think of this as the user-specific software each person is running. This is the micro-level view. It's often known by the acronym OCEAN. It helps us understand things like how creative you are, that's openness, or how disciplined you are, that's conscientiousness, or even just how you recharge your batteries, that's extroversion. And this is so critical because a great leader gets that even within one country, their team is made up of unique individuals. You've got your introverts and your extroverts, your big picture thinkers, and your super detail-oriented doers. Okay, theory's great, but let's see how this stuff actually works in the real world. We're going to look at 2 global giants, IKEA and Shopify. They represent 2 fundamentally different ways of thinking about this, which we'll call the architect versus the gardener. So let's break down this idea. The architect, that's IKEA, designs this perfect, detailed cultural blueprint first, and then goes out and hires people who will fit perfectly into that plan. The gardener, on the other hand, that's Shopify, they do the exact opposite. They go find the most exceptional talent out there, the best seeds, if you will, and they trust that if they create the right conditions, a great culture will just grow organically around them. IKEA is the textbook architect. They didn't just export furniture. They exported their core Swedish values, things like simplicity, cost consciousness, and togetherness. Their whole strategy wasn't to adapt to every local market. Instead, it was to find and hire people all over the world who already vibed with those values. And the result? One of the most consistent brand experiences on the planet. And if you use that Hofstede lens we talked about, you can actually see IKEA's blueprint in action. See that low score on hierarchy or power distance? That directly reflects the Swedish value of equality. To them, managers are coaches, not bosses. And that cultural DNA is totally non-negotiable, whether you're in an IKEA in Stockholm or one in Shanghai. Now, let's flip to a completely different model, Shopify's Garden. Instead of a cultural blueprint, their obsession was talent, pure and simple. As a remote-first company, they could hunt for the absolute best A players, no matter where they lived. Their strategy? Give these brilliant people tons of autonomy and just trust them to solve hard problems. The result was nothing short of explosive speed and innovation. So if we look at their strategy through that Big Five lens, you can see Shopify was actively searching for very specific personality traits. They absolutely needed creative problem solvers who are high in openness, but who are also disciplined and self-motivated enough to kill it in a remote job. That's high conscientiousness. Their focus was never about fitting a pre-made culture. It was about achieving incredible talent density. So the difference here is just fundamental. IKEA meticulously builds a house and then finds people who want to live in that specific house. Shopify hires the best builders in the world and trusts that they'll create an amazing house together. And here's the kicker. Both of these strategies have been wildly successful. They just represent a critical choice a leader has to make. You know, this whole contrast really gets to the heart of what the legendary management guru Peter Drucker was talking about. Whether you're an architect or a gardener, the ultimate goal is exactly the same: to build a system where a bunch of different human talents can come together and achieve something truly extraordinary. Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for the future of leadership? And really, why does this whole personality paradox matter now more than it ever has before? It really comes down to three core principles. First, there is no single best culture. There's only the best fit for what your company is trying to achieve. Second, great leadership isn't really about solving these tensions, like standardization versus adaptation. It's about managing them and holding them in a creative, productive balance. And finally, all of this, it has to start with self-awareness, knowing your own personality and your own cultural biases. Which leads us to one last, big, forward-looking idea. As technology continues to just completely change the game, what do you think will be the single most valuable leadership skill over the next 10 years? Well, here's a hypothesis for you. Artificial intelligence is going to get scarily good at the science of hiring. You know, analyzing resumes, skills, performance data, that part is going to become a commodity. The real, lasting strategic advantage is going to shift to leaders who can master the art, the deeply human skill of understanding, integrating, and inspiring unique personalities. So I'll leave you with this question. As AI gets better and better at finding the perfect technical fit for a role, the ultimate challenge and the ultimate opportunity falls to you. Can you master the human fit?